Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Burgenne. If you're new here, I cover true crime and current event stories, and just a warning before we get started, I often cover a lot of cases that are graphic, they're creepy, and honestly, they're pretty terrifying. So please listen and proceed to this episode with caution. This is my 6th podcast episode and officially my 2nd YouTube video. So I really appreciate you guys being here, especially if you're listening or watching on YouTube. It means a lot to me. If you guys could do me a favor and like this episode and subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're listening to, again, I would really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Don't forget to comment your thoughts on this case as well. I love chatting with you guys in the comments. And if you came here from TikTok, thank you so much. I'm going to be telling you guys a story that I've already told on TikTok in the short version, and now you're going to get the in-depth version here. So I'm very excited to just dive in because, again, we're dealing with another long, in-depth case with a lot of different twists and turns, and I'm curious to see how quickly you guys catch on to some of these twists. Okay, so let's just jump right into the story. It was early on a Saturday. We are in March 12th of 2011, and this story is going to take place in Bethesda, Maryland. So a woman is waking up this morning, getting ready, and making her usual commute to work. She is the manager of a Lululemon store, and the store that she manages is tucked in between a bunch of other like high-end stores. It's kind of like a little shopping center mall area, so it's a busy little shopping district. Nothing really seems out of the ordinary. She reaches for the door of her work to unlock it as anyone would when they're unlocking a store, and she stops for a second because something is wrong. The front door is not locked, and that's obviously alarming because typically you lock a door when you lock up a business at night. So that's already a little bit weird, but it's extra alarming because she knows who locked up the night before, and the manager knows that this girl was very responsible, and there's no way she would have just left the store unlocked. Like, there's no way. This girl was incredibly responsible. She'd been with them for a long time. Like, there's no way she would have just left this door unlocked. So something either had to have happened or someone broke in. So she's a little bit sketched out, obviously, and she goes to open the door and is absolutely shocked with what she sees. Like, it's horrific. The entire store is in disarray. It's honestly chaos. Racks are overturned. Clothing is scattered. Mannequins are broken. Something terrible happened here last night. It's pretty clear. And then she sees some blood and hears some moaning. And unlike in the scary movies where people run right towards the creepy noise and then end up getting murdered themselves, she was like, I'm stepping outside. I don't know if that noise was the person who just did this or a victim. I don't know. I'm getting out of here. So she ran back outside, and again, it's a busy shopping area. There's already people milling about, and she waves down a guy and asks if he will come in and check out what is going on, because she's not going in alone. She's seen too many scary movies. She knows how this is going to end. So she asks him to go inside and check. He agrees, and if you thought that just the clothing and mannequins and a little bit of blood was bad, he's going to find like pure horrific, awful evilness. Like, there are no words. He kind of pauses for a second because like what he sees is awful, and he shouts for her to call 911, and she does. In the back of the Lululemon store, in like a back hallway, there is a woman lying face down. She's motionless, and she is in a pool of her own blood. And there's not just pooled blood. There's blood spattered everywhere. It is a horrific scene. It's pretty clear that whatever happened to this woman was incredibly violent. Like, you could tell that just off of the initial look at the scene. It was violent, and she suffered. And just a few feet away in the bathroom is another woman. This woman is conscious, but barely, and she is found with zip ties around her wrists and ankles. She is also seemingly in pretty bad shape, not as bad as the woman that we found lying face down, but she doesn't seem to be faring too well either. So now we know we have 2 victims here. The woman in the bathroom, her clothes were slashed, and specifically in the crotch area, which is not a good sign. We also will find out that the other woman lying on the floor in the hallway, the crotch of her pants was also slashed. So the likelihood of some sort of sexual assault is pretty high. The woman in the bathroom who was tied up, her name was Brittany Norwood. And as the paramedics rush in to help, Brittany is kind of in and out of it, but she is seemingly really, really panicked and desperate to know about the other woman in the hallway. She is asking if she is okay. She's asking where she is, and they are wheeling Brittany out as she's crying for the other woman. And the other woman's name was Jana Murray. And she doesn't know it yet, but Jana had been beaten so severely she was hardly recognizable. She had a rope around her neck, and again, her pants, just like Brittany's, were cut open in the crotch. She was absolutely covered in injuries. Her hands, her face, her neck, her back, her legs, everything was covered. It was absolute horrendous trauma. And the scene told police pretty much everything they needed to know right away. Jayna was not alive. She did not survive this. And I don't know when they end up telling Brittany that, but for quite some time, Brittany is crying, asking if Jayna has survived, and they don't tell her right away. Like I said, it was a pretty gruesome scene, beyond anything I think probably the first responders and police were prepared for. One woman is dead, another is injured and terrified. Detectives immediately are trying to piece together what happened, and they turn to the only witness that they had at this point, Brittany. And so they start asking her questions as she is being treated. And according to Brittany, she says that she and Jayna had worked the shift the night before together. And after closing up, locking the doors, the usual routine, they end up going their separate ways to head home. But Brittany says that she realized that she had left her wallet inside, and Brittany takes the metro to get home, and she needed her metro card, which was in her wallet. Otherwise, she's not getting home. So she ended up having to call Jayna back and be like, hey, I'm so sorry. Can you please let me back in the store to get my wallet? And Brittany is not a manager, but Jayna was a manager, so she was able to lock up, so she had a key. So, of course, Jayna comes back. She's helping Brittany look for the wallet. And Brittany says that they looked together for probably 10 minutes, and eventually she was like, I just gave up, and Jayna ended up giving Brittany her own metro card so that she could get home that night. And they were like, we'll find the wallet another day. Brittany claims that as they're getting ready to leave, they've just decided that they're not going to find the wallet tonight, and Jayna's just going to loan her metro card. Two masked men, they are dressed in black, their faces are hidden under ski masks, one is shorter, one is taller. They barge into the store. One grabs Jayna and the other one grabs Brittany. They drag Brittany back to the bathroom, they beat her, they assault her, they do horrific things to her. And Brittany, who is a black woman, says that they are yelling like horrific racial slurs at her about the color of her skin. And she basically just says like these people were awful and violent and horrific, clearly. Brittany also tells the detective something that is just gut-wrenching. She says the entire time that they are harming Brittany, she can hear them harming Jayna. And what Jayna endured, I mean, they could see it, but what Jayna endured was just horrific and awful and beyond anything Brittany could describe. She said she had to sit there listening to the torment continue, and that they were incredibly violent to her. They were screaming things at her, and she could hear Jayna in the fight for her life. And again, she keeps asking if Jayna is okay at this point. Brittany is telling the police how she hears her friend, her coworker, fighting for her life, and she can't do anything, and that this fight went on for a very long time. She says like an excruciating amount of time. And at some point they end up telling her that Jayna did not survive, and I'm not sure exactly when, but this whole time Brittany has been blaming herself. I mean, I can't imagine the survivor's guilt she's feeling, but the fact that the reason they went back and this attack happened is because she forgot her wallet and called Jayna back. I don't know how you would live with that kind of guilt. So she is inconsolable as she is being treated for all of her wounds and being rushed to the hospital. Like, I can't imagine the emotions and probably shock she was feeling at this point. So the detectives are obviously reeling from this crime scene. It's horrific, it's violent, and now they have two masked men that really Brittany couldn't give any description on. They're clearly violent and sadistic based on the level of torment and torture and things that they were shouting at Brittany. There was a rage that was unleashed on Jayna's body that felt incredibly personal. And the fact that Jayna didn't survive, but Brittany did, leads them to believe that this person probably knew Jayna, and Jayna was the original target. When the autopsy results come back from Jayna's body, the results left even the most experienced investigators absolutely shaken to their core. Jayna had been beaten with at least 5 different weapons: a hammer, a wrench, other tools that were taken from a toolbox that they had found in the store, so it was likely just like the store toolbox, and other things like a metal pole from the mannequin stand, or even those long poles that they use to get clothes off the top shelves at different stores. So these horrific people used 5 different random weapons of opportunity to brutally beat this woman. And she had defensive wounds all over her arms and hands, and it's clear she fought really hard. And then the autopsy reports how many wounds she had on her body. And brace yourself, guys, this is horrific. She had 331 wounds on her body. And those are only the ones that they could like count. There's obviously going to be some overlapping like wounds where there's probably things that like hit her twice in the same spot, and so they didn't even count those because they couldn't know if it was 1 or 2 or 3 like overlapping. So at least 331 wounds to this one woman's body. The fatal final injury was a knife to the back of her head, and the autopsy shows us that she was alive for all of these injuries except for the very final one. And they know this because every single one bled profusely because her heart was obviously still pumping. So that means that for 330 wounds at least, she was alive and endured the pain. She likely fought for hours and hours, probably an excruciating amount of time. And it was also clear that she had been sexually assaulted with items from the store, like the metal rods that I had mentioned earlier. And after this autopsy, police are like 100% this had to be personal. Jayna knew her killer. They also started to note that the difference between Brittany's wounds and Jayna's wounds was pretty significant. Brittany had a lot more superficial wounds, and Brittany had told them that she had been raped and sexually assaulted with some of the tools that had been found that were used on Jayna. And her story does seem very much to line up with the violence that Jayna experienced, but just to a lesser degree. And the police are just noting that it's a little bit odd and inconsistent that Jayna received such a level of violence and then Brittany only had like superficial wounds. And obviously to Brittany, there's nothing superficial about these wounds. Like, she's still in pain, she's still reeling from the trauma. But to the investigators, this is a really big difference in how they were treated. So they do interview Brittany again and are asking her about all the different details. And Brittany said that the men told her that she got it easier than Jayna because she was better to assault. Like, they had more fun sexually assaulting Brittany than they did Jayna, so they let Brittany off easier, which seems a little bit odd. I almost think it would be the opposite, like they would want to hurt her more, but I could be wrong. Clearly, I don't think like a sadist, horrific murderer. But the detectives start to comb through the Lululemon crime scene, and something else caught their attention. There were bloody footprints all over the store. They were like sneaker prints, like I think they were Jordans or something like that. Large men's size 14s, and they were tracked throughout the store. They were kind of like all over the place, as if someone had just run through blood and like left a trail. But the really weird part was that they didn't lead out of the building. Like, they were just in the store. They couldn't find any dirty shoe prints going in the store that had like dust on them, and they couldn't find any bloody footprints trailing out of the store anywhere. So it kind of seems like these people, whoever wore the specific shoes that were bloody, put them on as soon as they got in the store, did this horrific assault, walked through blood, and then took them off and left. It's a little bit odd. One of the theories was that maybe they realized that the shoes that they had come in with were bloody and they didn't want to leave a trail, so they just took them off and left in their socks. That way they wouldn't leave a trail leading out of the store. But that does seem a little bit odd. And one of the things that was really, really odd, and odd is probably not the right word, I would say infuriating, is that there was an Apple store right next door, and it turns out that there were still employees inside the Apple store during the time that Brittany said the attack happened. And it was 2 Apple employees and then a security guard. And we find out that they actually heard the attack and they did nothing, which is, again, horrific in its own heartless way. So the police interviewed these Apple employees that were there the night before, and you can actually Google this. You can see the footage of the 2 people leaning over against the wall and listening to the attack. So you can see it on like the Apple camera security footage. It's ridiculous. So the employees are saying that they heard the thuds, they heard the screams, they even heard panting through the walls. They at one point heard someone saying, quote, "Talk to me, don't do this, what's going on," end quote. And then one of them says that they even heard someone cry out, "Please help me." And they didn't call 911. They didn't call security. They didn't tell the security guard that literally works with them. They didn't even check on them. They didn't look through a window. Nothing. One employee later told everyone in court that they, quote, "didn't want to get involved. I thought it was just drama," end quote. You don't have to get involved to call 911. Calling 911 does not mean that you're inherently involved in this case. And I cannot imagine hearing this awful fight where it's interesting enough or violent enough that you can hear it through a wall and you're leaning over to listen and you're hearing someone say, "Please help me," and you choose to do nothing. Like, they went home, put their heads on their pillows that night, and just went to sleep. Like, I cannot imagine how they did that or why, or I don't know. I don't have the words truly for how angry these people make me. And I feel like when I hear stuff like this, I want to think that if I was getting attacked or I was in a situation like this, people around me would hear something and say something. But there is such a thing as the bystander effect where everyone just kind of assumes someone else will say something. I was an EMT, and one of the things that we learned was that if you're ever responding to a scene, especially if you're off duty and someone collapses or you need someone to call 911, if you just shout call 911 to a big crowd, no one's going to call 911 because they're all going to assume someone else did. You have to point at someone and say, you call 911. And then you have to look at someone else and say, you go get help or whatever. And you have to delegate actual people. You have to call them out and say, your job is to call 911, because otherwise people just sit there in shock and they all think someone else is going to do it and 911 doesn't get called. So unfortunately, this is a classic sign of the bystander effect, but also kind of just people being crappy because they heard someone say, please help me, and didn't call 911. And that's just ridiculous, honestly. And what's so sad is that if they had called, maybe Jayna would have been alive. Maybe Brittany wouldn't have endured all this torment. Like, they could have saved her life potentially, but instead they just went to bed that night and like acted like nothing happened. But there was even more things that were kind of odd and puzzling. Not only the shoes, everything was found in the store or had already been there. And they even found the tennis shoes in the store. And Brittany said that those were actually from the store and that they had used those specific shoes, the size 14 sneakers, for mannequins and displays in the past. So basically everything that's in the crime scene comes from the store, which is really weird that two men would come in to rob a place or harm someone without bringing weapons or restraints or anything. And Brittany said they were wearing a backpack, so you would think they brought stuff, but it seems like all the weapons they used were found from the store. So that's a little bit odd too. And then the last part of the puzzle that isn't really clicking or fitting in right is that, according to Brittany's story, Jayna would have had to have driven back to the store to let her in, which means her car should be parked out front. But it's not there. When the police arrive and the medics arrive, her car was gone. So they wonder, could the attackers have taken it? Is that how they got away and why we don't see like any trail anywhere of them walking away? It just seems odd. So now they're trying to figure out where Jayna's car could be, if they took it and dumped it somewhere or if something else happened. Honestly, at this point in the case, detectives are probably feeling like they have more questions than answers. Who would do this to these two women? Why was Jayna the target seemingly? What was she involved in? Did she have some like creepy past? Did she do something sketchy? Like, why was she targeted by these two men? And why were they so angry at her? And then also, who are these two men? We have no description. We have no idea who they are. And while I've just listed off a lot of different evidence that was found at the scene, it's all kind of conflicting, so there's not a lot to go on that's actually helpful in leading to these two men. The police reviewed hours and hours of security footage, cameras from nearby businesses, the nearby traffic intersections, public transit, everywhere within the vicinity, and then even probably farther than they needed to look. And for a while, it seemed like they were never going to find two men that fit the description. But eventually, as they are scouring this footage, they do spot two men. They're dressed in black. One is carrying a backpack. One is a little bit taller. One is a little bit shorter. And again, they're in black and they just kind of look out of place. And they're in the area at the right time. So the detectives track them down. They're like, all right, maybe these are our guys. I don't know how we're going to get them to crack, but we can interview them and see if we can get any answers. Unfortunately, when they interview these guys, they're actually super young teenagers and they were just busboys. They had finished a late shift at a restaurant nearby and they were able to give an alibi. It checked out. And so the only two men they have found on any security footage ever checks out. They are not the perpetrators of this crime. They're not involved in any way. So now there's no leads, there's no suspects, and again, there's just a bunch of weird evidence that isn't quite lining up. So they're wondering if like maybe Brittany could have remembered something wrong, or if there's more information that she just, in the moment of trauma couldn't tell them. So they end up bringing Brittany in again, hoping to just get more details and answers. And they ask her about Jayna's missing car. And they say like, hey, have you ever been in it? Do you know what it looks like? Like, we're trying to get some information here. And Brittany kind of nonchalantly says that she like kind of know what it looks like because she's seen Jayna driving in it before, but she doesn't really know a description and she's never been in it before. They thought it was a little weird that Brittany only had like a really vague description of her car, especially if Brittany had called her back to get the wallet, saw Jana pull up in front of the store, and like saw her get out of her car. So that seems a little bit odd, but maybe she's just not paying attention. Maybe she's just forgetting because of the trauma of the whole experience. Maybe she's just not good with cars. I know I'm not that good with cars. Like, I see my coworkers pull into work and I couldn't describe really what half of them drive because I don't really pay attention to that kind of thing. After they interview Brittany though about her car, they end up getting a major break. They find Jana's missing car, and it was parked just 3 blocks away from where this all occurred. So if the guys that did this took it, they only went 3 blocks, which kind of seems like, why would you take a car just to go 3 blocks? Inside the car, however, it was appalling. There was blood, quite a bit of it, and it wasn't just Jana's blood, it was Jana's and Brittany's. And that's really weird because if Jana was killed inside the store, how did her blood get in the car? And then why is Brittany's blood in the car? That's kind of a bizarre thing. If the killers used it as a getaway vehicle, why would they only drive 3 blocks and abandon it? Why wouldn't they ditch it far away? And then why would there be so much blood inside of it? Like, this just isn't making sense. And the police are starting to wonder if this whole story of 2 men is legit, because Brittany in their interview said that she didn't know what Jana's car looked like. She'd never been inside of it. But the amount of blood that was inside, that was Brittany's, it wouldn't have just been like transferred blood from these 2 men. It would have had to be Brittany was inside the car bleeding. How did her blood get in the car if she's never been in the car before? Like, things just aren't really adding up. So they have a lot of different questions. They're kind of wondering if maybe Brittany's lying to them or withholding information. And then Brittany shows up at the station again. And she says she has more to say. She says that she claimed that she actually forgot to tell them some details. And this time she came in with her sister and her brother. And Brittany says, hey, remember when I said that I didn't know what Jana's car looked like and I'd never been in it? Well, actually, I was in Jana's car the night that this happened. After they attacked us, they made me drive it. Kind of seems like a big detail to forget to tell the police, especially because they talked to her about the car and how it was missing, and she never said, oh, I drove it. I know where I left it. Let me tell you. Like, she didn't tell them where the car was, even though she would have known if she drove it. So they ask her about this. They're like, you drove the car. Why did you drive the car? And she says that after they attacked them, they forced her at knife point, not gunpoint, knife point, to go drive the car and drop it off. They said she had to go drive it 3 blocks away, drop it off, and then walk back. They didn't go with her. There's 2 men. One could have stayed with Jana. One could have gone with Brittany to make sure she didn't run off. But they didn't go with her. And she says that the reason that she came back and didn't just run to the police station is because they said that they knew where she lived, which is a terrifying thing to think about. But if you were just held captive, they tormented you, they have your friend, you would go to the police and then you would stay with the police. So it doesn't matter if they know where you live because you're safe with the police. So why did she not go to the police? Why did she not ask for help? It's just not making sense. So the police have been kind of eyeballing Brittany the past few days. After the whole lying about the car and saying she didn't know where it was and then them finding her blood in it, along with some of the other details in her story and the fact that she really doesn't have that many deep wounds, and honestly a lot of them are matching the pattern of being self-inflicted, they had started to wonder if Brittany was in on this, if not the only person that did this, and those 2 men didn't exist at all. So police are questioning her about this car, and Brittany's starting to get squirmy as she's telling the story. She starts to seem like maybe she's lying. I mean, her story is just not adding up anyways, and it's like falling apart in front of her. And the police are picking apart this story and being like, well, Brittany, this doesn't make sense. Can you explain it to us better? And she's starting to scramble. So now the police are like, oh, things are starting to make sense here a little bit more. The reason that there are footprints throughout the store that don't lead out is because Brittany was inside the store, harmed Jana, and then used the shoes that they've been using for the mannequins and displays, and then used it to stage that some men had been inside. And the reason that all the weapons and tools that were used on Jana were from the store is because Brittany was already in the store when this happened, and it was clearly a moment of rage. It was not something that was thought out, so she just started grabbing whatever was around her. And the reason that Brittany's wounds were so different from Jana's is because Brittany did it herself, and they actually can see, based on her wounds, that they very much indicate self-inflicted wounds. They're very superficial and they have clear signs that it was self-inflicted. So now they're pretty sure that Brittany acted alone in this murder of her coworker and then tried to stage a robbery and make herself look like a victim to get away with it. So they end up kind of pulling Brittany's siblings aside and telling them this and being like, we think it's your sister. And Brittany's sister kind of starts to believe them and is obviously horrified by this, but her brother is in denial. Obviously, like, it's hard to just assume your sibling is a killer. But as the investigation continues and they continue to interview her, they have more proof that Brittany is the killer, and Brittany acted on this alone. There weren't two men. It was just Brittany, and they're able to show the brother that. So finally, as the police have been interrogating Brittany for quite some time in this room, it's a police precinct. Obviously, they're recording all their interviews. And so the police say, hey, we're going to give you a minute with your brother. And the police get up and leave Brittany and her brother alone in this room where they are recording. Her brother ends up leaning in and asking her, like, do you have anything you need to tell me? Like, what is going on here, Brittany? Are you lying? Like, tell me. You can just tell me. I'm your brother. She kind of says, like, I'll tell you stuff, but I'm not going to tell you here. And then asks her brother if she thinks that they're recording. And he kind of reassures her, like, no, there's no way they're recording. Like, you're good. You can just tell me. I'm your brother. Just tell me what happened. And so she does. She confesses. She says there were no intruders. There were no two masked men that broke in after the whole wallet debacle. There wasn't an ambush. They didn't tie her up in the bathroom and call her all these slurs. There was none of that. It was all Brittany. She acted alone. All 331 wounds were at the hands of Brittany. So now the police have a confession and they have Brittany. And we end up learning that what really happened was Jana and Brittany were closing that night, and it's Lululemon policy for employees to check each other's bags for stolen items when leaving, just to make sure that no one is stealing. It's like how they hold their employees accountable. Jana finds a pair of pants in Brittany's bag that she had not paid for. And so as she is leaving, she calls their manager and tells them, like, hey, I think Brittany was stealing from the store. The manager says that she'll deal with it in the morning and that they should just go home for the night. And so they both start to leave. And then a few minutes later is when Brittany called Jana back and said, hey, I forgot my wallet. So essentially she lured Jana back with this fake wallet story. Jana comes back into the store after locking up, and Brittany attacks her because she's worried that she's going to get in trouble for stealing these pants. So Brittany attacks, assaults, torments her before moving her car, coming back and trying to stage it as a robbery, and then she harms herself to seem like a victim as well. Brittany was tried and sentenced. She was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. And as time passed, more and more of Brittany's lies about that night unraveled and just exposed how truly horrific the reality of everything that happened inside that Lululemon store was. What began as a momentary lapse of judgment in stealing a pair of pants ended up being the brutal murder of Jana Murray. And this woman who had trusted Brittany as a colleague, as a coworker, as a friend, ended up being killed by her over a pair of Lululemon pants. She left behind a trail of horror and shock to really everyone who's ever heard of this story. I mean, it's awful. How do you go from being coworkers 1 minute to harming them 330 times and then sexually assaulting them with different things found around your work? Like I said, Brittany was arrested. She is serving out her life sentence in prison, but even though justice was served, the impact of what she did to Jana will be felt forever in Jana's family and friends and everyone who loved her. Jana was an incredibly happy, bubbly person. She was just a light in people's lives, and the rest of her life was stolen from her because someone panicked, essentially. Okay, you guys, obviously the story was incredibly heavy and honestly pretty shocking. It took me a while to see the twist coming that it was actually Brittany and not these two random men. I don't know how quickly you guys caught on to that, but it truly, I think it took me a while because I was just like, there's no way that someone could harm someone 330 times alone, let alone it be like your coworker and friend. So I feel like I caught on to it, but like pushed that to the back of my mind for a while because I was like, I just hope that's not something that she was capable of. But clearly it was, and this case is just horrific and Jayna deserved so much better. But that is the end of the story of the murder that happened at the Lululemon store. I know this case was a hard one to get through, but I appreciate you guys being here and listening to this case. And again, just talking to me about all these different cases. Let me know if there's anything you guys want me to cover next in the comments, or you can fill out the form that is linked in all of my different bios. In that form, you can request any cases you would like me to cover. That is what I check first before the comments and messages, so I'm more likely to see that if you have a request. As always, you can find more videos and content on my TikTok, which is @Burgenne, or on my YouTube, or on my Spotify, or on whatever platform you get your podcasts from. You can find all of these linked in the description below of this video or podcast, again, however you're listening to it. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys next week for our next episode, where I will be talking about Madeleine McCann. 2 episodes ago, I said I was going to cover this case, but then I never did. So the next episode, episode 7, will be about Madeleine McCann and her disappearance, and we are doing a complete deep dive into everything we know and don't know about her disappearance. So I will see you guys next week for that episode.